Well, hello and welcome into another edition of 8Sports Nightcap here on WRICNow.com, on WRIC Plus, everywhere that you get our shows here on WRIC.com. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of the Nightcap. And as you can tell by our title, I have a very special guest this week, willing to take the time, a lot of time, I should say, to sit down with us this week to speak a little sports broadcasting, a little Virginia Tech sports. You know him, you love him. It's the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame member, Bill Roth, longtime voice of the Hokies and mentor of mine. Bill, thanks so much for taking the time.
Nolan, it's great to be with you and to talk Hokies sports to everyone down in Richmond. So thanks for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. A staple in the state of Virginia, if you don't mind me saying, inducted into the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame in 2013. It's your 31st season calling Virginia Tech football. You spent 3 years calling games with the Richmond Braves when they were, the AAA team here at the Diamond. You've had a long career of broadcasting games in Virginia. Have you enjoyed it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Hokie Nation makes it so enjoyable. Our fan base, as you know, from Hampton Roads all the way to Bristol and Northern Virginia, everywhere in our state, it feels like there are Hokies everywhere, and they're so supportive. Our fans pack Lane Stadium and Castle Coliseum, and everywhere we go in the Commonwealth, it feels like home. So I've loved it. And when I had a chance to work with the Braves and Grady Little back in the 90s, a championship team there as well, it was a lot of fun. Some really, really good players. Some Major League Baseball Hall of Famers came through the Diamond back in the 90s.
Yeah, and you have that famous. How do you start every broadcast? From the blue waters of the Chesapeake Bay and
through the hills of Tennessee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's funny. The guy that helped me start that, there were two people. Jack Fleming, who was the longtime and legendary voice of West Virginia, but Chuck Noe, the former South Carolina VCU and UVA head coach, who hosted a talk show on WRVA in Richmond. And I wanted to meet Chuck because he was the men's coach at Virginia Tech when they built Castle Coliseum. And so we drove to Richmond and met him at his house in the Fan, and we walked around for lunch. And he was doing his Sunday show back at that point with Coach Terry Holland and Coach George Welsh at UVA, and he had all these funny shticks on the air. And he says, you got to get a shtick. I go, I'm not a comedian. He goes, nah, man, showbiz. And so help me come up with that.
You've been saying that for a long time, been saying touchdown Tech for a long time. Just about every single montage you see of Virginia Tech highlights from their success in the BCS era, it's like your calls have been synonymous. Do you get a kick out of that? Do you enjoy still, after 3 decades of calling games, kind of the, I hate to, sorry for my lack of vocabulary, but the coolness, how the ability to be synonymous with all these magical moments in Blacksburg.
Well, I clearly understand that great players and memorable plays make broadcasters sound good. So let's shoot straight. All right, the players are the ones that made it happen. But again, it goes back to our fans. They've always embraced me and Mike Burnop on our broadcasts, and we feel like we're part of their families, and they feel like the same, that we're part of theirs. And the memories back from in the late 80s and the 90s, Nolan, not every game was on television. So for a lot of those great plays, isn't that amazing? Not every Michael Vick football game was actually on television, right? It was a different era. So a lot of people, they'll always remember the play through what they heard more so than what they may have seen a week or two later.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, even you talk about families feeling like you guys were a part of their homes. When I was growing up, my parents probably won't like me telling this story, but they wanted to, listen to you and Mike on the call. My dad was a Virginia Tech alumni, so excuse my bias, but they would drive out to, I think it was Portsmouth, and tailgate in the Toys R Us parking lot because they couldn't get the radio station in Suffolk very well. So they would pack up the grill and the snacks and bring me and my sister when we were toddlers and listen to the games from the Toys R Us parking lot because that's where they got the best signal of the games, to give you an idea of, there was a time where you couldn't watch every game.
That's a fun story. Tell your parents thank you. And if they
Yeah.
ever want to come to Blacksburg, we'll hook them up with a really good tailgate
Yeah,
uh,
we'll
right in
have to
Lot
do that.
1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
30
that's
30
fun.
years though is a long time to be on the call. I mean, you think back to the Sugar Bowl in '95 that kind of put Virginia Tech on the map on the national stage. The perfect season in '99, all those BCS games with Beamer in the 2000s. Do you have a favorite memory or place to call a game? You know, that memory of, you know, the perfect season in '99.
Yeah, I think that when you go back over, there have been a lot of games over the decades going back to the 80s.
Yeah.
As a Virginia Tech announcer, all those wins over UVA, I think it's 21 out of 22 now, Nolan. So half the people watching that with UVA degrees just threw their computers down, but it's cyclical. Those things are cyclical. It's funny you asked. I think my favorite place to call a game doesn't exist anymore. It was the old Orange Bowl in Miami,
Really.
where the radio booth hung off the upper deck, and when the Miami fans would jump up and down, the booth would sway. And I had, and still do have great appreciation for some of these legendary stadiums in Major League Baseball, NFL, whatever, NBA. To broadcast Virginia Tech basketball games in Madison Square Garden and then football games at the Orange Bowl really meant a lot to me. And so Miami was very, very good in the 80s and 90s, and they were loaded with NFL players, and the Hokies beat them 5 in a row. And I think each of those wins over the Canes was huge. And then even in 2004, when the Hokies and Miami were in the ACC, that was our
Yep.
first year, their first year. We had to win at the Orange Bowl on the last day of the season.
Yep.
It was a de facto ACC championship game. The commissioner, John Swafford, was there with the trophy, and he didn't know whose locker room he'd enter following the fourth quarter. And we won the game late. So some of my great memories, other than obviously Lane Stadium, tops the list. But you said on the road, uh, I would take the Orange Bowl. Think of the Jets winning the Super Bowl there, and then a Miami Nebraska game, and in the Orange Bowl in college. So the greatest NFL games and the greatest college games were played there. And so when the Hokies made their mark in the Big East and later in the ACC by beating the U when it was the U
Oh yeah.
in Miami is something really sweet.
Yeah, vivid memories of that game. When you think back to, those years of, going to, did they go to the Orange Bowl that same season after beating Miami in the Orange Bowl?
Well, the Hokies have been in the Orange Bowl a couple of times.
Yes, of course.
First was in '96, and yep, the Hokies would have beaten Miami that year. And then we went back. That Nebraska game, and then we played Stanford, and we played Cincinnati, and we've been to the Orange Bowl 4 times. And
Yeah, you've had some big games you've been on the
ready,
call for.
ready to go back.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans are, and all those teams synonymous with, Frank Beamer. You were right there along the way of the ups and downs of his era, and especially the success. And when you guys would have the post game show and the Tech Talk Live show with them, how special was it to have that relationship with Coach Beamer? And then did you see the difference of it? Then maybe your first couple of years when you were just a kid, 22, 23, calling games versus when did that turn from you were interviewing a good friend?
I think other than my father, I think I probably spoke with Coach Beamer more than any other gentleman of that stature in my life. And they both, my dad and Frank, have had huge impacts on me. I never made a big decision, or from his perspective, a medium decision, right? But I never made a big decision without at least running it by him. And he and Cheryl became really close friends, as did Casey and Shane. And so it's really full circle to see Shane down at South Carolina right now. But yeah, I thought Frank, from early going, you could tell that if he wasn't a successful football coach, he could be a successful CEO. He understood how to respect people, how to motivate people, how to delegate to his staff. He was fiercely loyal, but he wouldn't be shy to correct one of his underlings, one of his assistants, if he didn't like how it was going. And you may not have seen that from the outside, but that was one of the real keys to his success, his ability to build loyalty amongst his staff. And then that translated back in that era, relationship with high school coaches. And you saw some of the best high schools in Hampton Roads and Richmond and Northern Virginia, Central Virginia, Lynchburg area, pumping out their best kids to the Hokies. And that was because of personal relationships that Frank built.
How did you end up in Blacksburg? Because right out you graduated from Syracuse, where part of that special fraternity of sports broadcasters. I think you spent a year at Marshall, and then you find yourself coaching a Big East team, or was it the Southern Conference?
We were independent in football and in the Metro for basketball.
Metro, yeah.
Yeah, David Brain was the athletics director, and he brought me into Blacksburg. And as a Pennsylvania native who had gone to Penn State games as a kid, Tech instantly reminded me of State College. In fact, in so many ways, Virginia Tech and Penn State are so similar. They got a much bigger campus, but the pride that school has among its alums in Pennsylvania is the same as what we have down here in Virginia. It's just instead of white and blue, it's orange and maroon. They've got a bigger stadium, but their fans are not nearly as loyal as ours. And we've seen that again this year, where we're selling out games with a team that's en route to a really tough season record-wise, but the fans are still showing up and showing their passion and love of Tech.
Have you had any crazy interactions with those fans over the years? I'm sure you run into people, you get recognized anytime you're somewhere long enough.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get old, Nolan. So it'll happen to you too. We get recognized on the road too.
Really?
People know who we are. So those are interesting conversations. For example, the walk from the press parking lot to the stadium in Charlottesville is always colorful because you walk by those fraternity homes. And then I will say this: once we were playing at Maryland, the Hokies were playing at Maryland, and we were staying at. They have a Marriott hotel right on campus. So we're walking from the Marriott over to Bird Stadium, and a bunch of Maryland students who were similarly well hydrated, if you get my drift, Nolan, thought Mike Burnup was Chuck Amato. Remember Chuck Amato?
Yeah, of course.
Big chest, pumps out his chest, and that curly Italian hair. Well, Burnup's got the same hair, similar build, and they were cussing Mike Burnup, thinking he was Chuck Amato the whole way. That was, and I think the Hokies won the game 30-3 up there that day. I do recall that, but it can be good and bad to be recognized. Just so you know.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time in the booth, on the road. Sure, there's been plenty of restaurants visited with Mike Burnup over the years. That's a special, scenario. There's not often that you get a duo that has been together for so long as you two. What's that experience and relationship been like?
I haven't done a Hokie game without Mike sitting next to me yet.
Wow, he hasn't missed a single one.
Every game, yeah. No, neither one of us has for illness or anything like that. 1985, Mike started doing Tech football games, and he's done every game since, home and away. He's not missed a broadcast. That goes back to Coach Dooley.
Yeah.
So to give you an idea, but I'm really lucky to be in the booth with him, and really lucky to be able to share the stories of our players and our team with this incredible fan base. And that's what makes Tech so unique and special. And I guess, right, every play-by-play voice of a specific team has to say that. But everywhere we go, people talk about our fans. The people are envious of that. That Virginia Tech 0-3, playing Wofford, also 0-3, an FCS team. And not only is the game sold out for a nooner, but the student section is packed at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
That just does not happen. There's only two schools where they've had this 8 to 10 year lull after a great multi-decade run and go into this lull and keep selling out their stadium. And that's Virginia Tech and Nebraska. And I don't like being on that list of schools where fans go, I want us to win 10 games every year and average 70,000 fans. And hopefully that's going to come soon enough. But the biggest thing everyone else talks about when they talk about the Hokies is our fans.
And, you've been synonymous with them for so long. But as a sports broadcaster myself, that has had 4 stops in 8 years or 5 stops in 9, something like that. It's a tough grind, and I'm often trying to improve my abilities and climb the ladder. But you've been able to stay at the same place for so long. Was there ever a time where you wanted to maybe try your hand at doing MLB games or go national? Or of course, in 2016, you stepped away to try things out on the West Coast.
Yeah, so I did. I spent a year at UCLA, same company that produces the games. So it was a new city, but obviously a new team, but the same company,
Yeah.
same boss, that type of thing. So it was more of a transfer. Learned a lot. Learned a lot doing the games on ESPN during the time that I was after I left LA, and learned a lot. And then we started our SMA program at Tech in
Yep.
2016, and now we're in our 10th year in Blacksburg, training the next Nolan Knights and as you know, a lot of behind the scenes people that work
Yeah.
control rooms and cameras and production trucks.
Yeah, and how did that come about? Was that maybe your brain baby that you wanted to educate the next wave of sportscasters, or how did you find yourself so interwoven in it? Now 10 years later, where you guys have won national awards for the work that has been done at Pamplin, or not Pamplin, but help me out, Moss Art Center.
Yeah, so the genesis of it was actually with Jim Weaver, our former
Really?
athletics director, and we were having breakfast at a bowl game, and we talked a little bit about the beginning of this ACC network and who was going to staff it, and then our needs as well with Hokies baseball and women's basketball, and we were doing a lot more programming and TV shows each week, and I said it would be really good to create an internship program where we could get some help and let students call games. And it wasn't a week later, he said, this ACC network we're going to need students. And we're not like Miami or Atlanta or Boston or Pittsburgh,
Yep.
and originally Maryland and DC that were in our league. We don't have all these freelance people they can work a Georgia Tech game on Friday and they work the Hawks game on Saturday and a Falcons game on Sunday, and they're all freelance talent. We don't have that in Blacksburg. So we had to train students, and we spent about $20 million to build an ACC television studio in our football stadium at Lane Stadium. And now when we do games, 80% of the people crewing it are college students at Tech. And I'm really proud of that. But that was the beginning of it, just 15 years ago when we started an internship program, and now it's a full-blown major.
Yeah, I absolutely would not be sitting here with my current position if it wasn't for the lessons I learned calling games and being out there. I think I sent you an email on like Thanksgiving Eve or something when I was back from fall break at like, how do I get into the business? And it's done wonders for me, and I know it's done wonders for a lot of other folks. It's a whole major now. When I was in school, my first few years, it was like kind of something on the side, but now it's a full blown major, if I'm not mistaken.
Very academically challenging, Nolan. You should point out that your degree was incredibly challenging. You climbed that mountain.
Absolutely.
We got a couple hundred kids in our sports media analytics program now, and the majority of them will get some job in media somewhere along the line. If they are on television or in television, more likely behind the scenes as a producer or director or graphics or replay, whatever,
Yeah.
right? Everyone sees everybody on camera, not realizing there's way more people
Oh yeah.
behind the scenes. And candidly, those are easier jobs to get now.
Oh yeah.
And they're much more stable behind the scenes. So that's what we're doing in Tech.
And how much of is it that you're doing with that now compared to the games that you call?
Well, I can't do as much. Unfortunately, we've got the great Zach Mackey, who hosts our shows with our coaches, Tech Talk Live each week, does all the men's basketball games. He's the director of broadcast operations. And that was huge for me coming back to Tech because we got a lot of students and they deserve my full attention. And their parents are paying good money tuition money, and
Yeah.
I want to make sure that if they're there, they get the attention that they need because broadcasting, journalism, writing, blogging, podcasting, play-by-play, whatever it is, talk show hosting. A lot of kids want to be the next Pat McAfee,
Yeah.
and they show up with tank tops on. I go, no, no, we don't need that. But we've got a lot of kids, and I want to be there for them. And we're seeing now some of the best high school journalists around are applying to Virginia Tech. And even right now, as we record this, I'm in contact with a couple of kids, and it's a young man from Chicago is deciding between Virginia Tech's SMA program and Medill at Northwestern. We have two kids from the Northeast, one from Connecticut, right outside of the city, and someone else in New York, and it's down to Virginia Tech and Syracuse for both. And that's a conversation you did not hear 10 years ago,
No.
where you've got these high achieving high school kids with brilliant grades and unbelievable vocabulary depth, as you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
Nolan.
absolutely.
You talk with them and you go, "You're a high school senior," and they've never gotten a B in a class. It's all A's going back to middle school, so they're very bright kids. And when we have people, if we have a kid from Chicago who's going to pick Virginia Tech over Medill, that would be like the Hokies beating USC in football or beating Ohio State. That's a real step forward for us. So we'll find out here because each of those three guys are early decisions. So
Yeah.
I have some academic butterflies.
Yeah, you're recruiting now. Is this a surprise to you how much you are enjoying this kind of, different thing that you weren't doing, maybe, 15, 16 years ago? Now it's kind of, you have such a big role in, these young students' lives and seeing them succeed. It's probably much different than, you getting excited about, a give it to me Roscoe call against Miami.
Well, when I see a picture or a video of Jake Lyman hosting a talk show in Nashville, or when I see Kevin DiDomenico on ESPN calling a game, or the PGA Tour Network, Kevin's doing that, or when I see Nolan Knight standing at the VAB in Greenbrier with a plaque, I'm proud
Yeah.
that here we have people living their dreams, following their dreams, who work really hard, committed to Tech when we were just getting going with this. So it's pride. There's a lot of pride. Evan Hughes winning the Jim Nance. That's essentially
course.
that's the Heisman,
Heisman
Trophy
Trophy,
of
yeah.
sportscasting. So I imagine if you're the coach of a team and you've got All-Americans like Nolan Knight and Evan Hughes, you're proud of their work and they're role models for the next group that's coming through. And so when I say I'm proud of you and happy for you, it's the truth because it means a lot. It's helping Tech so much.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely didn't have you on to pat myself on the back here, so. We'll talk a little. How about a little Richmond Braves talk? You spent some years at the Diamond, at the heyday of the Diamond, if I will say, from 93 to 96. What was your time, around Richmond broadcasting, and especially the type of players that were playing for the Braves during that time as well?
It was a fun time. Steve Stewart and I did the games. Steve did all of them. I did all the home games and about half the road games. And after 4 seasons of that, coinciding with all these Hokie Bowl games and postseason men's basketball runs, I was getting no time off, and it was a great 4 years. I will tell you that. Learned so much baseball from Grady Little, who was the manager of the team. It was a big deal back in the day. The Richmond Braves. And those guys went on to go to Atlanta, most of them, and they won a World Series there too. So they won throughout. It was an amazing ascension, Nolan. I don't know the exact order back in the day, but I think Danville Braves, Pulaski Braves, Greenville Braves, and they won like 100 games at every stop, and then AAA Richmond Braves, and then they go in and they win the World Series. It was amazing. And then when there was a strike, and a bunch of our games were on TBS, I guess in '94. But I got to be around a lot of really great players and then really smart management people too. John Sherholtz, who was the GM of the Braves, was always in town. And Turner actually owned the Richmond Braves. It was owned by
Really? I did not know that.
the Atlanta Braves and Richmond Braves. I guess you could say the Atlanta Braves owned the Richmond Braves, but it's really above that. So yeah, it was the same corporate rules and paycheck stubs back in the day.
Well, yeah, we had to say goodbye to the Diamond a
Yeah.
few weeks ago. It was a special ceremony, special last couple of games. I mean, they sold out, I think, the last 3 games of the year.
Yeah,
And it was
the
cool to
Flying
see
Squirrels have been great, man. They've taken it to a new level, and it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, the attendance has been unbelievable. I mean, they compete with AAA teams as a AA squad.
Yeah.
It's like they're 10th or 12th, and I might be inflating those numbers a little bit, but by far the best in AA. And we're all excited for the new park. But did you enjoy your time in Richmond, or you always kind of maybe more so like the college town vibes of Blacksburg since you spent
Oh
so much
no, I
time there?
loved Richmond. If I say bottoms up pizza 3 times, you think they'd comp us a meal down there? That was one of my hangouts back in the day. I loved going down there. So the Diamond, we would go down to Broad Street after games to Penny Lane Pub or go out to the. Is that still there? I hope so.
I'm not sure. There's
Showing British English Premier League soccer.
oh yeah, I think it is still there.
Happy hour starts at like 11 a.m. All right, so we're gonna have bottoms up pizza and then swing by Penny Lane for a pub.
There you
So
go.
we're 2 for 2. I loved it. I loved Richmond. Lived there a bunch. When I first came to Tech, I lived in Richmond for a year. Then I obviously was there during the summer, those 4 summers with the Richmond Braves. But love the city, and so many dear friends are in Richmond now, raising families. Their kids are coming to games, and they make that drive 64 to 81 every Saturday morning.
But why Virginia Tech though? Why have you stuck around? What makes it so special that it has just become, synonymous with your broadcasting career and with your life, really?
Well, it's an amazing place. Our fan base is remarkable. Institutionally, what Tech stands for, why we're here, is unique. It's a big land grant school of our state, and I think institutionally it's fulfilling its mission. The amazing traditions that we have, from the core of cadets to athletics, now to being a Tier 1 global research university. It's been so amazing to see it. And I haven't had the chance. I was very close with Marshall Hahn, and I've known each one of our presidents at Tech very closely. And to see the people that have come here and how each of those presidents has made an impact on Tech has been really cool to see too. And so I guess at the end of the day, Nolan, that just means I'm really old, right? Because
No, I wouldn't say that.
I think my 5th presidential administration at Tech. So.
Well, Bill, thanks so much for taking the time to hop on with us today, talk your broadcasting career. How can our viewers be sure to tune in to your next broadcast?
Well, we'll be on the air next Friday night when the Hokies battle Cal. All our programming in Richmond you can catch on the Fan, 9:10 a.m. and 105.1 FM in Richmond. We do the Cow and Gates Hokies update each Wednesday. We have Tech Talk Live on Thursdays, and then of course Hokie football and men's basketball. So on the Fan, if you're love to watch or listen or both to programming on your phone, the Hokie Sports mobile app is amazing.
Oh yeah, I use it myself.
Watch games, listen games, buy swag, trade tickets, upgrade seats, swap tickets with other fans. It's amazing. So I would say, and you can also listen to all our games and see all our highlights on the Hokie Sports mobile app.
Perfect. All right, Bill, thanks so much for not only coming on and spending some extra time with me today, but for your mentorship and friendship over the years. It's been a real pleasure.
Well, we're proud of you. I know I've said that like 5 times now, but it's true, and can't wait to see you in person. And thanks for our amazing Hokies in Richmond and the entire Metro Richmond area who support the Hokies throughout the 804.
Perfect. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Nolan.